Hi, welcome to Pilates for Runners. This session is called Happy Hips. It's actually a session that's quite close to my heart because about 3-4 years ago, I had very unhappy hips. It meant that I had long periods of time where I couldn't run. I was in a lot of pain through my back, all the way down my leg with sciatica. It was a very uncomfortable time for me, and it's made looking after my hips and making sure that they're happy quite an important thing as my strength and conditioning work. So this session is based around what I used, or some of what I used, to get my hips happier and healthier. It's a combination of mobility moves and strength. So to get the most out of this session, I've basically doubled up. So all of the moves are a combination of those two. So we're mobilizing as well as strengthening the hips. And we're focusing on those deep inner stabilizing muscles. So a lot of the movements are quite slow, they're quite precise, but it does mean that we then get to target all those deep inner muscles that stabilize the hips and help to stabilize the pelvis. As always, when we do Pilates, there's core engaged. So we'll work with those things and hopefully have happier hips as a result. So come around onto all fours to start. We want our wrists under our shoulders, our knees under our hips. We're going to draw the shoulders back and down so we're nice and active through the upper back. We're not sinking down towards the floor. And then we're going to tuck the tailbone into your neutral. So neutral is where you're not hanging the belly down to the floor, but you're also not arching the spine up to the ceiling. So it's kind of that midpoint between the two. So find that. And then we're going to use those lower abdominal muscles to keep us nice and still and stable in this position. So if you had a tray of very full drinks balanced on your back, you don't want to be spilling too much with this movement. So engage those lower abdominals gently so that you can maintain them. And then we're going to extend the right leg out behind, bend the knee. Now you're going to try and get your knee up behind you as high as possible without the belly dropping to the floor. So squeeze into the bottom. Now keep the leg up high, take it out to the side, and then slowly back to the start position. Same thing with the right leg, up behind, keep it up high, out to the side, slowly down. So like I say, the body is staying really still. So if you imagine that your hip bones have got lasers on them, they should be pointing towards the floor the whole time. And that way we really focus on mobilizing the hip joint and strengthening all those little muscles around the joint to get the most movement we can. Also, by going slowly, we can focus on getting the biggest range of movement in the hip as possible. But also, we're holding that leg out to the side a little bit longer. It's a little bit more challenging for the muscles than if we were going fast. So it's nice and slow. We've got 2 more in this direction. Shoulders down, lower abs pulling in still. Last one. Now we're going to go back the other way. So take the leg out to the side, cocking the leg basically. Knee up behind you and round and down. I know it's a bit of an unfortunate position to be in, but it's really good mobility for the hip. So lift the knee out, keep it up high, behind you, and then down. Good, and don't be surprised if you feel this in the other hip as well, because it's doing quite a lot to stabilize you and help keep the body still. So you may feel this on the supporting side too. We've got 2 more in this direction. Out, up, behind. Last ones. Out, up, behind. Bring it down, lovely. Reset, so draw the shoulders down. Tuck the tailbone into neutral. Lower abdominals pull in, and we're going to extend the left leg, bend the left knee. Same thing, up behind you. Keep it up high as it goes to the side and down. So keep the movement nice and slow. Focus on making the circle as big as possible without your body moving. So check your hip bones are facing the floor. Keep your breath flowing with the knee as it moves round. Okay, we've got 2 more from here in this direction. Up as high as you can. Keep going for that range of movement. Last ones. And then go back the other way. Knee goes out to the side first, up and around. Keep it slow. Side, behind, and down. Side, behind, and down. Good. 2 more if you can. Good. Last ones. Side, behind, and down. Good. Just take the weight back. Give your glutes a little stretch by resting towards your heels. Nice big breaths. And then from there, we're going to come out onto our side. So come onto your elbow. Feet, knees, and hips are stacked. So you might need to take that bottom hip back a little bit to make sure the hips are stacked. And then we're not facing the hip bones to the ceiling. They should be facing forwards. And then start by just drawing the shoulder down from the ear so that we're working the upper body. Lift away from the floor so we get a bit of oblique engagement down on the underneath side. Lower abdominals pull in as always. And then start by just squeezing the heels, lifting the knee as high as you can whilst keeping the hip bones facing forward. And then you're going to pick up the heel, take the heel as high as you can as you tap the knee. Tap the heel, tap the knee. So again, keep it slow so you can work on the range. Knee as high as you can, foot as high as you can. And those hip bones really still. So obviously if you're struggling with range, what will happen is your body tries to compensate by moving with the knee. That's what we want to try and avoid. We want all the work and all the mobility going on in the hip joint, not the body. So it's a great bit of core work and shoulder stability, this one as well. Good. Tap. If you really struggle with the shoulder and the core work, then you can do this flat on the floor. But what I'd say is build your strength through your center and your shoulder so that you can eventually come up and work here. Okay, but if you need to, focus on the hip by coming flat to the floor. Good, we're going to do one more. Then we're going to lift the leg so that it's level with the hip and drive the heel behind you by squeezing your bottom. And then squeeze, release. So if you dig your fingers in your bottom at the top, you should feel the muscles tighten under your fingertips. So again, we're getting mobility by stretching and opening the hips, and we're getting the strength work into the big glute max muscle as we extend the leg behind. Drive and in. And this is a great one for us runners because when we run, we want to be able to use our glute max to extend the hip and drive us forward. Obviously, we've got the leg straight when we do it, but we're still using the glute max muscle and we still want those lovely hip flexors to open. So this is a good one for us to do. Keep the body still. Good. Few more. Remember, shoulder down away from the ear and lifting away from the floor. Now, drive the heel behind you and leave that hip open so we keep that hip extension. Extend the leg out and rotate the toes and knee down towards the floor as much as possible. And then we're going to lift and lower the leg. Tap the floor and then lift as high as you can without dropping the waist. All right, so all the work is going on in that hip and down the outside of the hip into the hip, the abductors on the outside. So again, all those smaller stability muscles around the hips. And the reason we want to rotate the toes and knees down is if they allowed to rotate up, you're going to start to want to use your quads and hip flexors. Okay, so try not to do that. We want to target the smaller inner muscles, not the big mobilizing muscles. Good. Couple more. Then come down, push up onto your hand. We're going to pull the bottom knee forwards. We're going to extend the top one as far back as we can, and then just put the foot on the thigh there. Bring your hand in a little bit. Now you're going to squeeze your bottom, push your hips forward to get a lovely stretch, arch back. And again, we're getting a hip opener as well as working into the glutes. So squeeze your bottom, push your hips forward, and then release. Squeeze and push forward, and then release. Good. Arch the upper body back as you push the hips forward. We're going to hold the next one. Squeeze the bottom, push forward, hold. Nice big breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Keep the bottom tight. Come down. Lovely. We can do the same on the other side. Now you know what's coming. You can either look forward to it or dread it. It's up to you. On your elbow. So feet, knees and hips stacked. Bottom hip goes back a little bit. So we've got the hip bones facing forwards. Draw the shoulder down away from the ear. Lift the waist away from the floor. Engage those lower abdominals. And then we squeeze the heels, lift the knee first. And then keeping the hip still, we lift the heel, tap the knee. Heel and knee. Nothing moving except in that hip joint. So it's really about isolating those hip muscles. And remember, you've got the option of coming flat to the floor. For this whole sequence, you can stay down on the floor and just do exactly what we do with the hips. Obviously, apart from the last one where we're pushing up. Like I say, as runners, we really want to try and be using as much of our body as possible. When you're lying flat on the floor, it does save your shoulders and your core a little bit of work, but we want to be trying to use all of them together because that's the closest challenge, or mimicking what we do when we run, where we're using the whole body. We're going to do 2 more. And then we get the leg up, level with the hip. We're going to extend that heel, kick it behind, open the hip, squeeze the bottom, and then release. Drive in behind, and then release. So remember, shoulders down, waist away from the floor. So just do a little check on that. Lower abdominals should be pulling in to keep the body nice and still. Drive and back. Dig your fingers in, just check as you squeeze. You can feel those muscles under your fingertips tightening. Drawing the hip back. Good, now take the leg back, keep it back, extend it away, rotate the toes and knees down so we get the outside of the hip and round the back, and then lifting and lowering. Remember, try to avoid using your body. Really isolate the hips. And this one is, again, it's a really good one to do this one because it requires a bit of lateral movement. Obviously, as runners, we're always going forwards and backwards. So doing a bit of movement to balance out that by taking some lateral side lifts with the leg, really important to try and introduce that into your strength and conditioning. It's a good way to prevent overuse, and it's a good way to target the muscles we don't quite use as well as we should do when we run. Good, last few. Come down, come up onto the hand. So the top leg goes back as far as you can. Bottom foot connects with the thigh, and that way we can squeeze the bottom, lift the hips, and really stretch back and release. And don't be surprised if it feels different side to side. I'm definitely a lot tighter on my right side than my left. It's good just to be aware of that, and then you can focus on the sides that you need to. So I often do a few more reps on my weaker side, which is my left side. It just, again, it helps to balance out, to make sure I'm not always relying on my right side as the dominant side. Good, let's see if we can hold this next one. Reach up, stretch. Push the bottom forward as you arch back. Nice big breaths. Good, then come down. And from there, we're going to come up to standing. So now we're up off the floor. We're going to carry on the theme of mobilizing the hips as well as strengthening them. And we're going to do that by taking the feet really wide to start. So they want to be outside of the hips and shoulders. Feet facing forwards, okay? Try not to turn them out in this position. They want to be facing as forward as you can along with the knees. And then we're just going to drop into one knee, Have it bent. This leg is straight, so we're getting a stretch on this inner thigh and then come up. So we're getting a stretch on this side and the strength is coming from this leg to support us and then push us back up. So as you come down, weight goes behind you, chest stays up and then back. We're just bending to this leg to start and then up. Down, stretch and then up. Good, now we're going to add a little bit more work. We're going to stretch and then we're going to push off this leg and tap in. Come down, stretch. Now drive off this standing leg and in. So starting to work and strengthen through the glutes and hips on this standing leg. Push up. Then we're going to add a little bit more work on this trailing side. So we're going to push down. This time as we push up, we're going to try and bring the knee up. So we're balancing on this leg, working more into the glutes and hips on this standing side. Down and then balance. Down, push off and balance. A little bit more core required here so that we keep the body stable to balance. So make sure those lower abs are pulling in. If you need help, just bring the arms out and that'll help you balance. Good, couple more. Good. Make sure you pause and that you are actually holding your balance, not just momentum. Good, last one. Now come down, bend into this knee. Now we're going to try and get this one off the floor, so we're going to work a lot harder on this side. Try and get it as light as possible and then see if you can lift and lower. Body is still, this leg is still. Lift and lower. So now we're working to this hip, but also working into this one to get that leg to lift and lower. Good. Keep this knee bent. It's quite a lot of core as well, so pull those lower abs in. Good, last ones. Come up, shake it off, and then we're going to do the same thing the other side. So nice wide feet, drop down for that stretch, weight into the heels, and then up. Stretch the inner thigh. Remember the feet are facing forwards here, try not to turn them out. Good, chest down. Good, this time we're going to add in the work. So drive off that standing leg, tap it in. Down, drive off. Good, now see if you can balance. Remember, bring the arms out, that'll help with your balance. Down, drive up. Good, last couple. Make sure you're balancing at the top, it's not just momentum. Good, take it down, hold, bend into this knee, see if we can get this leg up. All right, core, shoulders drawn back and down, and then you're going to lift and lower. Try not to rest on this leg. Hands on hips or hands out to the side. Good, keep this knee bent. Last couple. Good, come down. Shake it off. Last exercise, we're going to turn so that we've got some space behind us. So this one we're going to do a hip flexor stretch and some glute and hip strength on the other side. So take a big step back with your right leg first. Left knee is bent. You want to tuck the tailbone right under here. Keep the back leg as straight as you can so that we stretch and open the right hip flexors. Okay, so tuck the tailbone under. Feel that stretch. Now we're going to do a little bit of alternating between this stretch and a balance. So we're going to stretch and then you're going to pull yourself up with that left leg. So you're going to pull into a balance, back down into a stretch. Balance, and then stretch. As you stretch, tuck the tailbone under. Don't let the bottom push out behind. If you need help, again, just bring the arms out into an aeroplane. The narrower the arms, the harder the balance is. So if you want to make it harder, bring them right in. Stretch. And then balance. Try to pull yourself up with the left leg rather than pushing off this right leg. Pull up, tap down, balance. Good, couple more. Good, last one. Good, come back in. We're going to do the same on the other leg. So right leg is forward, left leg is back. Hips face forward, tailbone tucks under. Straight leg at the back, soft knee at the front. Left hip flexors are stretching. Arms are out if you need them to be. Pull yourself up with that right leg into a balance and then down into a stretch. Balance, stretch. Make sure you can hold that balance at the top. You're not just going in and out straight away. Make sure it's actually a hold and then back into your stretch. Each time you tap that back foot down, tuck the tailbone under, leg is straight, front knee is bent. Good. Couple more. Good, last ones. Back to that stretch, tuck the tailbone, step it in, shake it off. I hope you've enjoyed that session and I hope your hips feel a little bit happier. If you've got any questions at all, then send me a message.